Hello.
And how is Stefan doing it? And we're live.
And we're live.
Yo,
Cool.
Nithin, how are you?
Good, good. Excited, chill, stressed,
Chill.
both at the same time.
How how were the last couple of days? What okay, for our audience, what role did you play in this entire hub launch and how did the last couple of weeks feel?
Yeah, I mean, my role is pretty much someone who did Git init on Hub. And yeah, 1 year later, here we are. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much more of a tech lead kind of a role where, you decide what to do, how to do stuff, and take help from everyone you can, and yeah, push it out there. So yeah, and the last couple of days is yeah, I don't know when was day, when was night, just pushing everything out relentlessly with everyone, and yeah, here we are live with Hub.
Do you like what we have built?
Yeah, I think it's super cool. It's pretty. It's it turns the tables. So yeah, I'm quite excited.
What features do you like the most?
Oh boy, I knew you tell me. You've also been building it with me. What do you like the most?
Mm, before we talk about that, um, if you rewind a little bit, um, do you kind of remember how we started with Hub and what it turned into? Because I don't think we always had the final vision in our heads, right? It was, I
Yeah.
don't know, somehow this entire project it kind of evolved. Now AI comes into play, so
Yeah.
um, what do you think were the biggest changes you made, and do you still remember like how we started in the beginning?
I think Hub was an idea 3 years ago almost. I think it started out as an idea and we didn't get to it until much, much later, until we had Cosmo and everything. So yeah, I mean, initially Hub was what, like it's like it was a registry for APIs for organizations, and eventually it was still an idea of where you can have teams collaborate, but in kind of like this GitHub registry fashion where people push APIs and do stuff. But as we built Cosmo, as we learned, we figured out that hey, like we have built tooling around something that solves problems with teams in organizations, but we never really built a platform where you can bring those teams on the exact same page. Right. So we solved problems for tech which enable teams, but we never really completed the entire loop. So yeah, so that's how we kind of refined the idea a bit, and we reflected on how teams build together, how the development lifecycle happens, and yeah, eventually we've reached a point where we evolve that idea to have this multiplayer collaborative experience where yeah, everyone can just build out an API together. So yeah, that's the story of yeah, how Hub started and how it's yeah right now.
Multiplayer is a challenge in itself, right?
Oh yeah. the, yeah, I mean, yeah, how do you ensure everyone makes the exact same edits and stuff? And if you look at tools like Figma and Miro and stuff, and yeah, I think the tech behind it is really cool and really complicated as well. And especially when you add things like GraphQL and API design, and man, and there's so much that we need to think about. There's so much we need to, adapt, and yeah, just to enable this.
Yeah. Also, I think this Friday we will have another session with David where we dive a little bit deeper into Fission, the new algorithm behind Hub, because we kind of started building Hub And then after a little while, we figured out we need a new algorithm. Do you
Yep.
remember that time?
Yeah. I think it was like the first couple of months where we had an idea of what to do. And, we were hacking and we were like, okay, this is not working out. We cannot just compose subgraphs again, all over again. And yeah, we need a completely different approach. And yeah, so we had to, redesign the entire algorithm from scratch. It's like complete opposite of what composition does. So yeah, it was quite a challenge, and it still is a challenge.
Yeah. I think I remember like in the beginning you were using cursor or something similar and you were kind of trying to somehow simulate what
Yeah.
Fission needs to do. And the longer we kind of went down that path, the more we kind of realized it's not gonna end well. Like this is
Yeah.
not gonna fly. And then it was kind of clear the timeline is unrealistic. And yeah, we need to invest much more heavily. And then we involved David to kind of rewrite composition, but 180 degrees, like
Yep.
reverse, like composition the other way around. And to your question, what is my favorite feature? I would say, the core idea in Hub is you can do federation without knowing federation too much. So and you design the supergraph and you assign fields to subgraphs, and then the directives they are generated. And I think for me it's the biggest change. And we recently we talked with one of our customers, and they did a session with Hub for a new feature. And I think the most interesting observation was, initially, the backend engineers thought for this new capability they need to bring in certain features into the graph, and then someone suggested, let's do the dream query flow. So go from UI mock to query, and then they kind of realized they actually have all the capabilities in the graph. They don't need to do anything new. So yeah, I think it's for me one very big learning is Hub can teach people to think about use cases more and less about data you have, and just like, yeah, what do you want to enable? And um what's what's your take? Is that also your favorite feature, or anything else in Hub that you like?
I mean, it's kind of in the same. Excuse me. So, like I told before, I think we really didn't complete the solution to the problem where people just need to work together on something. And seeing all the cursors of everybody just coming onto the same page, like the designer comes and puts the UI mock, the front end engineer designs the query they need, and yeah, everyone is pretty much in the loop. And what's insane to me is that instead of focusing on delivering features and building out what's needed for the user, you start thinking about, hey, how do I solve this? What directives do I apply? Like, how do I get this to compose? This, like, the tech is there to enable people to work with teams, have ownership, and just, but it ends up being isolated. And yeah, and each team starts now thinking about that, where they go too deep into the tech. You should not be worried about how federation works. You should not be worried about how to get it to work. You just need, okay, I just need this in my API. I need it to live in these services. And yeah, Vision and the hub should just do its magic. And yeah, and yeah, that, I think that's my favorite feature. I think it abstracts away things that you should not be caring about at all, and it just brings people on the same page. I think that's my favorite part of about Hub.
If you think back, like, I don't know, 2-3 years, and we did our first steps with Cosmo, you were much less experienced. I would say
Hmm.
like junior level. how in the very early days, how did you feel about Federation? What what were your thoughts on Federation?
Fun fact, I came across WunderGraph even before I joined it, when it was like this very small thing. I still remember how the landing page was and everything. And I think that was, I to be honest, WunderGraph was the first time I came across the term federation at all. It was not from anywhere else. And it started with me falling in love with GraphQL in the first place. And it was, it was crazy that it started with Hasura, where you put GraphQL in front of the database. I would not do it ever
What a
again.
bad idea.
I would never do that again. But it did help me fall in love with GraphQL, though, because the way you query stuff and everything was just good. But there was, as you told, I was a junior, and we used to use a hack where you had this REST APIs that you can go through Hasura, and that kind of exposes GraphQL. So that's kind of like an intro to what Federation was at that time. And we ended up using Hasura as like this API gateway. And that stopped making sense very quickly. And that's where, I I opened up WunderGraph and studied about Federation. And initially it was like, okay, Federation just stitches to schemas together. And then I actually joined the company, and then I was seeing what David was doing. I saw this 10, 20 directives that does a million different things in a million different ways. And I was like, what the you know what I mean? So yeah, it's very cool tech, but it's not something anyone should be, let's say, like tinkering with. Like, it should just work. That's how Federation should be for me.
If you think about your early days and what you thought of Federation, and you go through the last couple of years all the way until today, how did your thinking about Federation evolve with all the customers we have, Paramount, SoundCloud, eBay, and many others? How did your thinking evolve about Federation, and what have you learned about this space?
Okay, so uh, we've talked to several customers regarding how they build features, how they evolve their graph and whatnot. And we always notice what customers do is they don't even start with requirements, right? Uh, they need to do something for the customer, and the backend teams just do whatever they want. And there's very little communication. There's very little to go about. And even if you see what we have built on Cosmo, we've built a lot of things just to protect the customers from shipping something that would break, right? So we have we check if the graphs even compose. We do a lot of linting. We do query plan checks to, because any change in the directives, any introduction of new fields in different schemas, it can adversely affect the query plans and stuff, right? But what we've always noticed is that teams never think about the customer. They always come last, because that's how Federation has been built so far. It's a tech which is applied on microservices, and somehow you magically get the schema that you can ship to clients, right? So that kind of forces teams to work in a way where they stop thinking about how the clients are going to consume the graph. And that's how we've always built APIs before GraphQL Federation came about. Like, you have this huge REST API spec that you have, and then yeah, you can, discoverability is another issue itself over there. But what advantage was there is that you still thought about the final API, and that kind of got lost with Federation. And there were so many questions and topics just on how Federation works. Like, if you look at Slack topics, you can always see David answering questions on how shareable should work, how requires should work, and all of that. And there is like a huge knowledge gap when teams require federation, but they haven't really dived so deep into it to do it right. And yeah, I mean, it comes to a point where we need to abstract it away and let them just do what they need to be doing, rather than being lost about the 100 different rules that are there for each directive. So yeah, I mean, there was yeah, so I think all of these sessions that we did with customers, so we call it the technical advisory board, and we go through how they do the development flow and all of that. And we notice that they open up a Miro board, they start putting bits and pieces of the graph that they want, and the UI that they want, and do this manual connections and stuff. And we were like, okay, this is insane, nobody should be doing it this way, right? And yeah, that's how we learned that we just need to allow teams to work in a way they have always known to work, even before federation was a thing. So yeah.
It's for me the interesting bit is we always had this idea of hub, and we want to launch it, we want to make it, and then we started building. And because we had this huge customer base, we did these technical advisory boards, and
Yeah.
that kind of really shaped like what we're building. And one of my takes today is, um, with federation in the classic way, the supergraph is kind of like a side effect.
Yep.
And I think there's like a fundamentally broken, or the idea behind federation is great as a runtime, but the way we're designing it, it's kind of fundamentally broken. Because if you create a REST API and you do it in a kind of professional fashion, you would start with an open API spec, and you would start designing that open API spec for the customer, for the use case. So
Yep.
you go use case to public specification, and then you go to implementation. And that can be microservices, that can be Kafka, it can be anything. There can be a BFF. Nobody cares. There can be so many things. And with federation, you have requirements, and then you ignore them. You go all the way to the backend,
Yeah.
and you define your subgraph with the directives. And the super interesting bit is these subgraph directives, they kind of vanish, because as you compose, key directives go away. So you have like an input, then you run composition, and after that you get the public graph. So you get the thing for the customer, and you can kind of sense how the product would feel for the end user. But it's just a super weird workflow where, I don't know, I think the way, what was the do you remember how David kind of used a metaphor to explain that?
Yeah, it is something like, it was
I
about a
think it was
cake.
around baking, right?
Yeah, baking a cake. So it's like, you first decide what cake you need to bake, and then you decide on the ingredients, and then you put them together. Because or you can't just take flour, water, and just mash them together, and you predict which kind of thing is going to come out. So it can be a cake, it can be something else as well. Like, how do you know? So the same ingredients can produce different things. Like, you need to start with what end product you need, and the exact cake you need, and then you decide the right proportions of every ingredient. Because like I told, changing the proportions, changing, yeah is just going to end up with a different product, and you can't predict that.
Yeah. I'm a little bit like a car guy, like these days less than in the past. But for my metaphor was always like, imagine you have a team, and they decide so let's say we want to build a car, and one team gets the task to decide tires. Next team decides motor. Next team decides chassis. Next team decides interior. They all do that in isolation for a
Hmm.
month. Then they all meet and everybody brings their part. Like, is this really gonna be a car? Like, does it
Yeah.
even fit together? And the idea of federation in a sense is to give teams autonomy, but at the end of the day, we want to have one API, we want to have one product, we want to have something that actually fits together. Like it should be a car in the end. So wouldn't it make sense that before the team that brings the tire, they can decide how they make the tire and what kind of material and whatever, but before they do that, we should somehow decide how the tire would fit into the chassis, maybe the size, maybe the weight, maybe some specification on how fast would the car go, like is it off-road, is it on-road, is it SUV, something. So they need some sort of spec or input or something. And yeah, so yeah,
Yeah, you
I
agree
al-
on what car you need to make, and then you decide, yeah, what parts you need, how you build out the parts, pretty much.
yeah. So yeah, that's hub. But what in a TLDR, what actually is hub, and how would you describe that to, I don't know, like, do you have a friend from school or someone who's not in tech? How would you describe hub to them?
Ah, I mean, I have
Do
several
your do
friends.
your parents know what hub is?
No, they don't know what
No.
GraphQL is. So we have to start from APIs, to be honest. Oh, do you know I design APIs? I help people design APIs. What does that mean? Yeah. So, yeah, how would I explain it to her? Uh, I don't know. I would say when you're scrolling in, it's so difficult to avoid. That's the challenge, right? So it's like when you're scrolling Instagram, there are a few people who like to play together and make something out of Legos, which you can then use. And yeah, our product pretty much helps those people decide on how the Lego should look like, and yeah, then kind of each allows each person to build out different parts of that Lego. I don't know how else will I explain it to her. It's so easy to put jargon, but yeah, it's so difficult if you want to explain it to my mom.
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay. Um Looking forward, what what do you think? How
Sorry.
does hub fit into the current time?
Oh, looking forward, you mean? Okay, that's quite interesting actually because
Okay.
so what did we solve just now? If you think about it, so we solved a case where you abstract away complexity, right? Now you build this algorithm where it just magically does it magically makes changes to produce the right subgraph schemas, microservice schemas, whatever it is. Now imagine a person who, like David, who has complete
A
context of
person
federation.
from India API.
Yeah, a person from India. Yeah. Yeah, but before we go to a person from India, let's talk about a person in the UK. Okay. So
Okay.
let's imagine we have David, who has complete context and knowledge of federation. And let's imagine someone who is coming new to APIs, right? And who has some partial knowledge and who has some idea of how it works and stuff like that. The thing is, the nature of federation is so complex, and we've built a layer which kind of abstracts it away. Now, who are the best people to be able to use this? People who have absolutely no knowledge of federation, or people who don't know, who can't do federation well, right? Who absolutely and different people fall into this category: front end engineers, designers, marketing teams, etc., etc. But there's one more person who also fits into this criteria, and that's LLMs, right? And that's AI.
Is it a person?
Who, I mean, that's a different topic. uh, but yeah, LLMs will not be able to do federation, right? It's just simply way too complex, and just there are way too many rules to keep in mind. And there is no layer for it to verify if what it's doing is right. So we should not let it do it in the first place. Now imagine if Hub is going to allow LLMs to interact with it. We're going to expose capabilities of Hub through MCPs, through tools and whatnot. And all LLMs have to do is be able to take the requirements from any context that they can. Let's say it's in Jira, let's say it's in Linear, people discuss it on Slack, etc., etc. And LLMs are so good at crawling through data, collecting requirements. And what it can do very well is imagine how the final API looks like. And you know what we are building to solve exactly that problem is that is Hub. So yeah, imagine LLMs doing just final API design, just building out a dream query that it thinks that it needs to do the front that's needed for the front end, and it's already good at writing code to visually display all of that and everything, right? Now we've solved that issue. Now the second part is, which is something that we already have, is how you can convert whatever Hub magically does into implementation code. So LLMs manage to do API design, Hub magically spit out microservice APIs. And now LLMs can take those exact APIs and implement it in whatever tech that it deems fit, right? And LLMs are very familiar with gRPC and just writing Go servers and whatnot. So now you have this translation layer between Hub, and Hub kind of makes GraphQL this internal thing which you don't worry about at all, and you let people just build whatever they're been familiar with all the time. And this is true for LLMs as well. Now it just takes whatever it needs to build and just writes simple old boring servers and gets the data it needs. And yeah, you've complete the entire loop. So imagine a day where LLMs can go from requirement to production code without you interfering anywhere. Maybe you can just approve whatever it has thought of, and yeah, just let it continue. So it's already familiar with how you have been using LLM so far, except now you do it for API design.
So I take an LLM, I give it requirements, for example, a ticket.
Yep.
It somehow interacts with Hub and figures out, can I do queries that satisfy my requirements? If they satisfy my requirements, good stuff. I can just go and do my task. And if it doesn't satisfy my requirements, Hub has created this abstraction layer where you can just say, what is your intent? Like what kind of
Yeah.
tasks you want to do? And Hub figures out how could the queries look like, and then it figures out how could the schema look like. At that point, we have a supergraph. This supergraph we could then take and we can kind of suggest how would we distribute this. Like,
Yeah.
we can do things like similarity matching, whatever. We can kind of suggest that, I don't know, user email should live on the user service, similar to all other user
Yeah.
fields, because you just have that user service. Okay, we can suggest that. Now we have this assignment. Now comes the very important step, governance, because we can't just let run AI freely. We need to keep it in check. And also we humans, we want to stay in control of our schema, of the quality. But at the same time, we can automate everything that is automatable. And I kind of have to admit, in my day-to-day, I'm a very heavy user of Claude, and my new muscle is, if I have a task and I know it's a little bit of crunchy, a little bit of reading, whatever, my intuition is always to go Claude. And
Yeah.
we want to create the same workflow for APIs. So your intuition should be, just use Claude, just use Copilot, just use Codex, your favorite tool, hook it up with Hub, and it will go all the way from requirements to API. And API, if we don't yet have what we need, we need to implement something new. But before implementation, there's one more step. We can mock the supergraph. So the new requirements, we can somehow mock them. I think that's a very important aspect, because ideally you're not stopping the flow. Like one feedback we get from customers is, if they have something, they have a new requirement, it can take, sometimes depending on the company, it can take a couple of hours or even days, like worst case weeks, but let's stay with hours and days until you get the mock. And that
Yeah.
means we can't continue building the front end because we don't have an API. And yeah, you could maybe locally mock it, but it would be nicer if you had like a mock against staging, where you're really just like, you have full staging and then just a bunch of fields mocked. So that is one part. And then the implementation side. So let's talk a bit about that topic, because we heavily invested and we keep investing into Cosmo Connect. And for some people, it's like, oh, why are they doing this investment into gRPC? And I don't know if you remember, like, some of my experiments, or when I do demos, I have created a Cosmo Connect skill, and I can turn almost anything into a subgraph in like 20 minutes. And it's not 20 minutes me doing something, it's 20 minutes Claude doing something. But
Okay.
yeah, what's how do you think about the last mile? Like, what comes after the proposal?
What comes after proposal?
Yeah, like we have a proposal, it's approved. What comes next?
You build that out, right? You build
Yes.
out whatever. Yeah. So you push the schema to GitHub, and you again let LLMs do their thing. Just let it rip.
And then we have a graph.
Yeah, you have a graph. I mean, you already had a graph. The graph is just alive.
We have more graph.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's insane that if you think about it, because people have workflows where they launch multiple agents in parallel, teamwork sessions, whatnot, and there is inherently this parallelism that everybody needs, and this workflow that exists right now does not allow you to do that. So you need to go through this flow where you design this super graph, you generate mocks from it, and now you have agents who can take this, build out the front end, build out the service in parallel, and you have something ready even faster. And everybody is about speed and parallelism these days. So yeah, I think we kind of unlock people who really want to push LLMs to its limits and burn all those
It's funny
tokens.
when you say people and you're talking about me. but
We
but
both are on the same page.
you know, I have this new behavior that sometimes I see a bug, and I have a tool where I can just click a button and it creates a Git workspace. And
Mm-hmm.
I just take a bug or I take whatever and I write a little prompt. And not that, like, it might not be my first intention to actually fix it. I'm more like, let's see if it's easy to fix. Like, is it a big change? Is it a small change? Like, what's the problem? And I'm just curious. And then I just let the LLM noodle a bit on it and see what comes out. Or yeah. And I think we can in rather quick time, we can get to a point where you can take, like, you can take a Jira ticket or a linear ticket and you throw it into your Claude cursor, whatever, and you tell it, hey, investigate this ticket, figure out all the requirements, and if you need to make changes, create a proposal.
Yeah.
And I think that will be a very big breakthrough, because um I was thinking about this a lot. The question in the end is, what we have built with Federation, where it kind of excels is when you have many teams contributing to the graph and you have many other teams using the graph. So you have like a many to many situation. You have many individuals involved from different teams, and they all try to figure something out. And Federation sits in the middle as kind of like the coordination layer. If you don't have this coordination layer, what else could you have? Let's say you have REST APIs. I have requirements. If I have requirements, I somehow need to figure out what REST API could do this. So I need a registry from a REST API. So that could be Backstage, for example. Then you need to have the schemas there. You need ownership, and you need to have like a governing process where you can propose the changes, and then you can do the implementation and all of that. And the other part is, agents are not just API implementers and API users that build software against an API. Agents can also be processes that
Mm-hmm.
use the runtime and they actually want to interact with the API. And I also think in that case, GraphQL and specifically Federation is also like a really, really nice match, because let's say you're a very big bank and you have 10,000 REST API endpoints and they are somewhere. How do you make all these REST APIs accessible to a model? And it's not just discoverability, because you can't stick 10,000 open API specs into a model. That's a
Yeah.
problem by itself. But another problem you have is, if you build REST APIs in 500 teams, and some companies are very big, but if you build REST APIs at that scale, every team, every department will do things slightly differently. Auth will be different. You will not have like one unified auth. You will have like different auths. So a model kind of ends up going a lot back and forth to figure out what API to use and how to use it, and all of that. And the other part is, if you don't have a unified graph, you run into yet another problem. Imagine you have a big bank, 500 teams, everybody builds APIs. There's no governance. Like, there might be governance, but there's not governance to the point that you can say 100% that there are no overlapping object
Mm-hmm.
descriptions in the open API specs. So if you take all these specs and you give it to a model, it will not be able to distinguish between two things. It will kind of hallucinate what is what. If we create a graph and we have collaboration and governance in place, where we agree what is an object, where is it coming from, and how does it relate, so what are the relationships with other objects, that is the power of the graph. It's not just objects, it's objects
Yeah.
and relationships. And if we have that, and we have it well documented, which we can achieve through governance, then we can build an engine. This is what we're currently working on. We call it Yoko.
Mm-hmm.
And that engine can take prompts and turn them into queries. And that, I think, it enables a whole new world of agent integration, where you can almost think like, do we need MCP? Do we need APIs? Or do we just need this kind of query layer, make it accessible to agents? Like, yeah, through MCP, but we will have like 2 MCP tools, like one tool to turn prompts into queries and one tool to execute queries. 2 tools, like no
Yeah.
context pollution. And we can even persist the queries. Then we don't have to send them back and forth between model and context. And I think we're very close, but Hub, it kind of sets the foundation, because if you think about the federation stack, we have the router and we have the schema registry. But what we never had in the ecosystem was like a well-defined process. How can I articulate requirements, go from requirements to queries or schema? And then if I don't have if the schema doesn't meet my requirements, how can I go through a governed workflow of adding new capabilities to the graph? Because I know companies, they have more than 400 subgraphs, and
Yeah.
there was not enough governance. And then you have a unified graph, but it is not really unified. It is just, it's just, like, like more like a big ball of mud architecture. You just keep adding stuff. Like, yeah, it sticks and it's a ball, but you will not love it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
I would
interesting because
go ahead.
yeah, it's interesting the way you put it, because this has always been an issue even without LLMs before. Like there has always been an issue on getting context. There has always been an issue as to how teams do it differently, and how a new person, let's say joining a company, is like, okay, what should I be following now? How should I be building this? Who has agreed on something? Like, is there someone who I can approach to ask about a certain piece, about how we do certain microservices, how we do certain features of the product, etc., etc. And I think in this age, LLMs just brought it even more into the surface, and people have realized that, hey, it's not just someone else having a problem. Now I am having a problem with my LLMs, because yeah, I'm not able to do my job. I'm not able to let LLMs help me do my job as well. So now people have gotten to a point where they need to help themselves first. And yeah, and as a side effect, we also solve it for just regular people. We call
Yeah.
LLMs. Yeah.
In Germany, we have Autobahn. Have you ever been on Autobahn?
I mean, that's the roads, right? Yeah.
And the thing is, like, you want to be on the Autobahn and you want to go like left lane and you want to go like, I don't
Just
know,
repeat.
150 or
Yeah.
more miles per hour. You want to go fast on the left lane. But with LLMs, you can't go fast if you get stuck in bureaucratics. If you tell the LLM, hey, do this task, and it's like, yeah, which of these 10,000 APIs should I use? And you're
Yeah.
like, I don't know, let's ask the platform team. And the platform team is busy because now everybody can code so fast with Claude and
Hmm.
whatever. So there, if you have like a timeline, the velocity is up in so many areas, but not in coordination,
Yeah.
like not in governance. And now the next piece is, okay, how can we remove those bottlenecks? How can we allow an LLM to go through that process of API discovery, API evolution, governance, implementation, monitoring, everything. Like, how can we? Yeah, how can an LLM get unstuck in that journey? And so, um, I think it's super interesting. Like, more than a year ago, we didn't know where this AI thing is going,
Mm-hmm.
and we were building Hub and our Federation tooling to scale humans, to add more teams, to add more people. And
Mm-hmm.
now we're in a completely new situation. And I think it absolutely accelerates this whole movement because, yeah, now you don't need 50 people to have that kind of problem. Now it's enough to have 10 people
Yeah.
and have LLMs because they are so fast now. They can.
Yeah.
I mean, you take
And
a
the
ticket.
important
Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying the important part is the right people, right? Like, how do you decide which 10 among the 50, are the best to monitor what's going on, is the best to steer the LLMs in the right direction, or like, yeah, who have proper context on what parts of the API are being changed and all of that. So, even deciding on the right 10 people is, I think, what Hub does really well, because, every single part of the schema always can have an owner, and that person always has the context of what is changing, and you're not changing everything, you're changing very specific parts, and yeah, now you have the exact person to yeah, be brought in the loop.
How you take the conversation and turn it into a sales pitch?
I wonder what we are doing this week.
Oh, okay. No,
Yeah.
cool. Well done. I need to jump. Nithin, I really want to thank you because, I mean, to some point I'm very much responsible for this entire initiative, but
Uh-huh.
as you can see, it is not a person with an idea. It's more like an entire team, almost like half a company it takes
Yeah,
to make it work. And yeah, thank you for all the sweat and
it's
missed sleep and whatever you put into this. And I'm excited for where we can take this because for me it feels like, for one, it was like a very big step, a very important step, but also it is just the first step of many more because I think we now kind of open up like a whole new world of opportunity to, yeah. Thanks again for being with us on the journey. Thanks for the
yeah,
people on the stream. And I think in the next couple of days we come back with Dustin and also like our CTO, and we come back, I think, with Viola to have a little bit of a view from the customer success side. And then on Friday, we will meet the master and maker behind Fission, David. So, yeah,
yep,
thanks for joining us today. Thanks again, Nithin, and I catch you later.
yeah. Bye bye.